Melina was targeted for being very attractive. In this movie, Amadeus Mozart was targeted for being confident and talented. The movie isn't about gang stalking, but some of the elements are very similar. There is stalking by proxy involved by one composer to another. It serves as an example of the trouble that comes with a psychopath's attempts to help, as well as the dangers of higher class psychopaths in important positions. It also serves as an illustration of what a gang stalking campaign against a male TI may involve. The movie starts with Salieri's suicide attempt after screaming Mozart's name, confessing he killed Mozart, and asking Mozart for forgiveness. He is taken to a psychiatric facility where he tells a priest his story. He heard of Mozart when he was a young boy and wanted to be like him. However, Salieri's father wasn't into music and didn't seem to want him to take lessons. Salieri prayed to God to make him a famous and talented composer who would become immortal and beloved for his musical talent. He offered his chastity, humility, and industry in return. His father died suddenly, and his life changed. He thinks God arranged his father's passing. Soon Salieri is in Vienna and working as a court composer for an emperor. He was well liked and did a lot of volunteering. He was popular and did a lot of charity work. The night he first saw Mozart changed his life. He didn't expect Mozart to be a giggling, dirty-minded creature. He didn't want to believe that God had chosen an obscene child to be his instrument. He thought it had to be a mistake. Mozart made an honest critique about Salieri's work at Salieri's request, but Salieri seemed to take offense to it. That was the first time they officially met. Salieri had also composed a welcome march for Mozart. Mozart memorized the song in one hearing, played it, and even added improvements to the song. Salieri was upset with God for putting the longing for composing in him, but denying him the talent. To be fair, Mozart wasn't perfect and was a little bit too cocky at times. Mozart's boss called him an unprincipled, spoiled, conceited brat. Mozart's backstory was not told in as much detail as Salieri's, so his behavior could not be understood as well as Salieri's. Salieri ignored the fact that he was talented and well known for his work, but Mozart was just more talented than he was. There will always be someone who is more talented, more attractive, faster, smarter, etc. It's called progress. It's just better to try and improve and be the best that you can be. Let those who are more talented, attractive, or whatever inspire you. If you can't match or exceed them, then just be content with what you have. It's uniquely yours. Someone will appreciate it even if it isn't the best. The best inspire and help progress. The rest inspired the best. Mozart had a fling with Salieri's crush. Salieri never had anything going on with this crush, and she probably didn't even know that he liked her so much. Salieri admits that this made him hate Mozart and start to sabotage Mozart's career opportunities. Then the emperor chose Mozart to teach his teen daughter over Salieri. Salieri suggests unnecessary procedures for Mozart to get even the most basic jobs in the emperor's court. He is aware that some other employees didn't like Mozart and later uses that to sabotage Mozart's chances. Mozart has to submit unnecessary paperwork to a committee just to teach the teen. Professional jealousy is gradually leading to a type of office mobbing. Mozart's wife goes to Salieri to submit the necessary paperwork on Mozart's behalf. She confides in Salieri of their financial deficiency and that she was showing him originals with no copies made. Salieri wants her to leave the compositions overnight, but she can't because Mozart doesn't even know she's there. He tells her to return in the evening, insinuating that he wanted her to sleep with him in order to get Mozart the job. She shows up, and when she undresses, he rings for the servant, who comes in and sees her halfway undressed and him fully clothed. It looked like she was trying to seduce him. He tells the servant to show her the door and leaves as if in disgust. Salieri declares himself to be the enemy of God, and he vows to hinder and harm God's chosen instrument as far as he is able. Salieri wanted to be the most talented, not amongst the most talented, and not the one who recognized the most talented. Salieri lied to the emperor and said that one of his pupils told him that Mozart had molested her twice. The lie hurts Mozart's career. Word gets around and no one will hire him to teach their daughters. Mozart confides in Salieri, who laughs with Mozart at the prospect of being seen as a fiend, although Salieri was the one who started the rumor. Mozart asks Salieri for a loan and says he's working on a composition that will be very successful. Salieri tries to pry, but Mozart won't tell. Salieri says that he has a friend whose daughter needs a music teacher. Mozart takes the job, but is indignant when he ends up playing to please the person's dogs. Mozart is extremely professional in the scene, which hints that he is not as unprofessional as his colleagues make him out to be. Salieri spied on Mozart's intimate moments in the beginning, and Mozart's opera, which was set in a harem, was a bit avant-garde, but he wasn't a bad person. Mozart was very confident, but a bit too cocky. Mozart's father usually smoothed things over for him and didn't let him see the responses to that. His flaws are that he hasn't learned about office politics and thought that talent alone would help him succeed. While that is the way it should be, it's not like that everywhere. Not even in some places that preach talent or skills over social standing. His wife tries to warn him about the social politics in Vienna, but Mozart won't listen. All that said, Mozart didn't deserve what Salieri was about to do to him. Salieri wasn't doing that to teach Mozart about humility. He did it out of jealousy. Salieri had his own issues to deal with. He probably could have had a relationship with his crush, but he restrained himself. Not knocking that because he had good reasons. Salieri shouldn't have been upset with Mozart over the fling because Mozart didn't even know about his crush. What Salieri did to Mozart's wife was wrong. He probably did it to get back at Mozart for the fling with his crush. But Salieri wasn't even married to or even dating his crush. Salieri shouldn't have spread those horrible false rumors about Mozart. He probably recommended that abrasive friend, knowing that the friend would somehow offend Mozart. As for Mozart being more talented and getting more opportunities because of his talent, Salieri was just plain wrong to sabotage Mozart's chances and deny those who were interested in music of getting the best that was available at that time. At a costume party where Mozart is playing a game, a disguised Salieri asks Mozart to play one of Salieri's compositions. Mozart plays while joking around, then farted at the end. Salieri is upset and says that God was laughing at him through Mozart. Salieri thought God was laughing at his mediocrity. Salieri sends a maid to Mozart's house. The maid told Mozart's family she was sent by an admirer of Mozart who would pay for her work. Salieri sneaks into Mozart's house by using the maid he sent to help Mozart. He looks at the opera Mozart had been writing and tries to find a way to stop its production. Mozart worked hard and completed The Marriage of Figaro, but the emperor had already banned the book. Salieri uses his position to get the other two colleagues who didn't like Mozart to tell the emperor and get Mozart in trouble. The emperor calls Mozart in and warns him that the book was banned. Mozart convinces the emperor to let him produce the opera. At this point, Mozart comes off as a candid, playful, humorous, though sometimes vulgar man, but he means no harm. His ideas were ahead of his time, and he enjoyed his work. Salieri doesn't like that Mozart's opera was approved, and tries to stop it again by mentioning the ballet scene because the emperor had banned ballets in his opera. The director ripped out the section of the music that had the ballet. Mozart runs to Salieri for assistance. Salieri pretended to know nothing about what the director did, acted as if he sided with Mozart, and told him that he would talk to the emperor. Salieri didn't say anything to the emperor. Things worked out that the emperor went to rehearsals and didn't like the scene without the ballet in order to have it put back in the opera. Mozart thought Salieri had helped him by having the emperor show up, but that wasn't the case. The emperor had come to rehearsals on his own. Salieri used his influence to make sure that Mozart's other operas were played only a few times in Vienna. Through the maid, and probably some other sources, Salieri found out about Mozart's relationship with his father. While watching one of Mozart's operas, he figured that Mozart had a troubled relationship with his father and that Mozart's father was haunting him from the grave. He used this intimate knowledge to inflict psychological torment on Mozart. He dressed up in the costume that he saw Mozart's father wearing during the costume party and went to Mozart's house as a messenger who commissioned a requiem mass for the dead. He anonymously paid Mozart to write a requiem mass for his own death, after which Salieri would present the composition as his own tribute to Mozart at Mozart's funeral. Nobody would know that Mozart wrote it because Salieri had told Mozart to keep it a secret. Salieri used a maid to spy on Mozart and know what was going on in Mozart's house, a type of stalking by proxy. Not all help is good help. Sometimes sadistic people use helping as a way to hurt or get information. That's why TIs need to be careful whose help they accept. The SBP network's members will be sent to help the TI, but it will most likely be the same as Salieri helping Mozart. When dealing with psychopaths' offer to help, remember that their mottos are probably one hand washes the other or nothing in life is free. In other words, you are under obligation to repay them in some way at their request if you accept their help. Psychopaths don't do things out of the goodness of their heart, though they may claim that. They want to know what's in it for them. The payback could range from doing something to make them look good, elevate their social status, or their image, to pressuring you to befriend, date, marry, hire, or promote them or their allies, among other things. It could probably be something you don't want to do, but they'll use a "you owe me" pressure to get you to do it. So be aware of this when a psychopath and those similar to them offer assistance. Salieri succeeded in the financial devastation of Mozart and his family. Mozart became indebted and unable to pay his bills, not through any fault of his own because he worked tirelessly, but because of Salieri's efforts to destroy Mozart's career and life. Salieri then gossiped about Mozart's downfall, complained that Mozart had alienated the whole of Vienna, and was a lost cause. Mozart goes back to the guy who had him playing for the dogs and offered to tutor his daughter again. The daughter is married and moved out of town. Mozart tells the guy how no one will hire him and asks the guy for a job of some sort. The guy says no. Mozart is not getting work because of Salieri's lies, blacklisting, and sabotage. Mozart starts to lose it. He drinks, takes pills, and the maid complained that he makes no sense when he speaks. The maid was frightened and tells Salieri that she doesn't want to go back to Mozart's house. Salieri doesn't care and is only interested in the opera that the maid said that Mozart was writing. Mozart gets sick while performing one of his vaudevilles, and Salieri is there to take him home. Mozart's wife is taking a vacation and Salieri is alone with him. Mozart tells Salieri that he is a good colleague to come to his shows because Mozart noticed that Salieri was his only colleague that came to the show. Salieri pressures Mozart to finish the Requiem Mass he anonymously commissioned, although it was obvious that Mozart was sick and probably needed rest or a doctor's visit. Salieri didn't physically assault Mozart, but he launched a psychological, financial, social, and professional assault that rivaled the worst physical assault possible and was the main cause of Mozart's death. He isolated Mozart from his colleagues and other nobles by spreading rumors that Mozart was a molester, and sabotaging Mozart's career led him to take out debts that he couldn't repay, though he was diligent and one of the best composers around. Salieri probably kept up his volunteering and charity work during and after he deliberately and maliciously destroyed an innocent colleague's career. He needed to keep up appearances and probably would have pointed to those good deeds if someone had accused him of what he did. If he couldn't get out of it, he probably would have said something like, "I did it, but I was only being human," or "It's human nature. I'm not perfect. I'm flawed." And some people would give him credit for acknowledging his flaws or simply being human. But notice that there is no remorse, guilt, or apology in there. Here's a newsflash. Mozart was human too. And most humans are flawed in some way. There's a big difference in being flawed in a human way and being just plain evil with little or no conscience. There's a scene where Mozart is vying for the position as the music teacher for the emperor's daughter. He tells Salieri to tell the emperor that the composer who got the position would hurt his daughter's musical talent. Salieri doesn't do it and jokes with Mozart that they both know that that wasn't true. Mozart was being a flawed human being. Compare that to what Salieri did to Mozart. Mozart's suggestion would have cost the composer one position, not his whole career. Salieri's lie that Mozart was a molester cost Mozart his whole career and reputation. What Salieri did was something more than just plain bad human traits. In the movie, Salieri didn't excuse himself as being human. He said he was the champion of the mediocre and showed little remorse at the end. In an earlier scene, Salieri prays to God to make Mozart leave Vienna for his own sake and for Salieri's sake. Then Salieri did things to make Mozart leave and destroy his life. Mozart stayed up all night finishing the Requiem Mass with Salieri writing for him. Salieri told him he wouldn't leave his side, and Mozart mentioned that he didn't think Salieri liked him, but he was wrong. Mozart died before finishing the Requiem Mass and before Salieri got to kill him. Salieri complained about being kept alive for 32 years and watching his compositions fade to nothing as Mozart's composition became immortal and beloved. No one would have known why Mozart was successful in life, and probably would have speculated that he must have had bad luck or blame his cockiness or other personal flaws. Few, if any, would know that Salieri was the culprit who was responsible for Mozart's destruction and death, even though he pretended to be of help and a friend. Salieri never accepted Mozart because he was so jealous of him. He wouldn't let anyone else accept Mozart by spreading lies, half-truths, and other misinformation. The whole time Salieri was smiling in Mozart's face, he was stabbing him in the back. He was two-faced, and most of the times that he offered to help Mozart or granted Mozart's plea for help, it was just an opportunity to get in Mozart's personal business, directly watch him suffer, or use it in a way to hurt him more. That's what happens to TIs. The SBP network goes to great lengths to destroy the TI, then sends some of their members to help. It's not clear why they do it, but it's probably for the same reason as Salieri's on a basic level and for more diabolical reasons on a more advanced level. TIs, please don't think that everyone who wants to help was sent by the SBP network in order to infiltrate your life. Just be aware that this does happen so you can start finding ways to recognize good help from bad help. The same goes for bystanders and others who may have to deal with psychopaths in general.